1, 2, 3. Hi bookworms! Welcome back to our channel!
I'm Icy.
And I'm Ivy.
It's been a while since our last video. Well, a little bit of a recap. I just had a little baby. She's sleeping right now, so we won't be seeing her until maybe the next video, depending on what mood she's in.
So we're finally back here after a few months.
So many months.
For the Asian Readathon wrap-up. So the Asian Readathon was held for the whole month of May, and to honor the Asian American Pacific month. What?
So it's the Asian Heritage Month in America.
Asian Pacific.
Asian Pacific Month in America.
But it's called American Asian Pacific Heritage Month.
Anyway, it was hosted by a bunch of booktubers led by Cindy.
From Read with Cindy. We saw that the challenges were pretty easy, so we were like, hey, let's do this.
Yeah, especially having a baby, and I was like, oh, I don't know what to read, so we just went to the library and did a little Asian book haul.
It was nice to explore different kinds of Asian authors and Asian characters. It was something kind of different because we've been reading white people.
We'll say it. White people books. I mean, there's nothing wrong with white people books. It's just we need to embrace where we came from.
True. As you may know, we're
From the Philippines.
So the Asian Readathon has 5 challenges. It's read any book by an Asian author. 2 is, I wrote the challenges here on my journal. Check that out up here. I'll leave a link. The second challenge is read a graphic novel featuring an Asian character or written or drawn by an Asian author.
The third challenge is read a book featuring an intersectional Asian character or written by an intersectional Asian woman. It either means queer, mixed, disabled, like something that's out of the ordinary.
And the fourth challenge is read a book by an Asian author that was originally written in their native language and translated to English. And the fifth,
Last but not least is, so they have this one book for the whole Asian Readathon, which is 1,000 Beginnings and Endings, which is a compilation of Asian mythology written by 15 different authors. And we'll be talking about that in a bit.
And without any further ado,
Let's do a Asian Readathon recap.
so the first Asian book that I read for the, the Asian Readathon is Persepolis by Marjane Satrapi. So it's a graphic memoir of the author where she experienced the Islamic Revolution when she was a child. And drawings were drawn by the author as well. So it was pretty interesting.
Which country is it?
Iran.
Oh.
So I wasn't really familiar with the history of that side. So it was good to see and good to know the history of how everything started, from who ruled Iran and how people were fleeing the country because of that. I liked the book. I just thought that the sequencing of the comics were just a bit confusing, but it takes time of getting used to it. So this book is the first book of the...
What do you call a series with 3 books? A
Series? Trilogy.
Okay.
But it's not trilogy. But it's not really a trilogy. But yeah, I really liked it. It was interesting to learn about the history, and yeah, I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars.
The first book I read was, I'm gonna talk about 2 because they're tourists.
Tourists!
So it's a duology. So Warcross is a game invented by this rich Japanese guy. It comes with like I'm not sure if they're contact oh no, not contact
Their
lenses.
glasses.
Their glasses, and then you watch the Warcraft games from those glasses. And it's very immersive. So it's about this girl who gets involved in the whole Warcross games and stuff happening behind it, the effects of Warcross on people, and there's like, the dark interweb. I also read the second book, which is Wild Card, which is a continuation, obviously, of the first book. I wouldn't go into it much because
Spoilers.
yeah, but I can say that the first book is about like the hero, and the second book is about the villain. I wasn't really expecting to like those two books because I didn't really like Legend by Marilu, but maybe because it didn't feel like it was realistic enough for me. So for some reason, this virtual reality world created in Warcross felt so real and believable for some reason. I don't know why. I was so immersed in it. It was very good, and I had to give it a. I was thinking of giving it a 4.75 out of 5. I just gave it a 5 because I really liked it. What's your second book?
And so the second book I read is Love, Hate, and Other Filters by Samira Ahmed. It's one of the contemporary reads that's very short. So if you've read A Very Large Expanse of Sea by Tahar Mafi, it's something similar to that, but it felt like a knockoff version, kind of. So Love, Hate, and Other Filters is about a girl who experiences hate, racism, prejudice, and all those because she's a Muslim.
Why is it Love, Hate, and Other Filters?
Love because she wants to find love. She likes to kiss boys. And hate is the
Other racism.
the hate, other filters and racism and everything. I didn't really enjoy this book because it was too cheesy, too sappy, too. I think it appeals more to younger girls, but for me, it's like
I wouldn't let my baby read that when she's... Or maybe the racism bit is okay, so...
not that racism is good, but
But like the effects of
Yeah.
racism,
Yeah.
open their eyes.
yeah. And at the back of the book, 'cause it's one of those publishers where they put a pie chart and they put like categories of where it belongs. So half of it is like love, and then
Oh.
a quarter of it is like hate, and then quarter prejudice. So
First love.
yeah, actually the first part of the book is love, so it's about dating boys, and it's I was about to DNF it halfway, but then more than halfway part got to the part where it got where
The part.
where things got pretty intense, and that got me continually reading it and finishing it. But then it wasn't really executed very well. Like what happened to this person? What happened to this person? And it's like, what? What? But I liked how the character was into making movies, editing videos, which
She resonated with that.
yeah, I connected with that. But not the kissing boys. Can't relate. And so I gave this a 2 out of 5 stars. That's one of the lowest ratings I've given so far this year. But I would recommend A Very Large Expanse of Sea
Yeah.
by Tahar Mafi.
I read Quiet Girl in a Noisy World, an Introvert Story by Debbie Tong. So I've been following her on Instagram, and I've been really impressed by her illustrations and how they resonate to me. And I love how it's monochromatic. It's like the introvert's life is not colorful at all. False. So it's basically about her life. It just shows a series of like comic strips about how she interacts with people, her job, her husband, family, and what she thinks deep inside. Sometimes the comic bits are funny, and sometimes I resonate with them. Like paying for stuff at the grocery instead of going to the counter with the cashier or the self-checkout, I would usually just go to the self-checkout. That is me. Avoid talking to people. I gave it a 4 out of 5, mainly because I don't know, it felt like some of the bits were really dark. So it says something like It feels like I'm always searching for a deeper meaning in everything I do. Sometimes I worry that even though I keep looking, there's actually nothing beneath the surface, and I'll spend the rest of my life searching for something that isn't there. Deep, man. Deep.
Jasmine.
I was like, oh man, it doesn't get that deep. It's like, girl, do you need wine with me?
You
Would you
okay?
like to go out for wine with me? But then again, she'll be like, I'm introverted, but not that to that extent. But I liked it. And Debbie Tong is a very artistic lady.
Okay, the third book I've read is Hear the Wind Sing by Haruki Murakami. So it's a very, very short book. It's actually one of his first books that he's written, and originally written in Japanese and translated. So it's like 100 something pages. So it's about a guy who goes home for summer, and then he meets a girl, and then they have this weird connection. And
It's
then,
always weird.
yeah. And then he meets another guy who talks about life with him. As usual, it has a Murakami vibe to it.
Weird but good.
Yeah,
like,
it's weird in a
it's
good
weird,
way.
but I wanna read it.
Yeah. To be honest, it didn't really stick with me. I pretty much forgot what it's about. But I rated it 3.5 stars. It's a good book for a short one, and it has more books to it. I think it's like a mini series.
Isn't it like 2 stories in one? Did you read
Oh
both?
yeah, it's the physical book actually has 2 stories. One is Hear the Wind Sing, and then one is Pinball.
Did you read Pinball?
No, I didn't read Pinball.
So is it counted as 2 books?
Yeah. I didn't even bother reading the second book.
Why? Because it's weird.
It's weird.
Weird AF. I remember reading IQ 84. That's like 1,000 pages of weirdness. But I was like,
But his writing is pretty good, but it's weird. It's weird in a good way.
it's like weird. It's like, is this fantasy or regular fiction?
But I'd continue reading his books.
Yeah.
It's pretty good.
The weirdest one is Norwegian Wood.
Yeah,
That ending, like, what?
What? And so for our last book, which is the group book, 1,000 Beginnings and Endings by Ellen O and Elsie Chapman. So it consisted of 15 retellings of Asian myths and folklore.
To be honest, I really wasn't impressed with the first Filipino folk tale in the book, which is about Maria Makiling. I don't know why, because it was a bit confusing. I was reading it and I was like, the writer was referring to Makiling as the mountain. Whenever I hear the word the mountain, I think of the mountain from Game of Thrones. The mountain, and what was her name? The author either referred to Makiling as like the mountain, she had a name. The name, or Duara. So I was like, who are these three? Is she talking about the same person? And I just had to piece it out together.
Duara.
Duara?
Because I was actually listening half of it on audiobook, and then the author was like, Duara.
Duara? Duara?
Are you thirsty? You want Duara? So
Anyway.
it's actually Diwata. Diwata. That was my most favorite
Oh,
story because the writing style is really nice.
different people, different
yeah.
opinions. I like the writing style
Yeah.
too. It was just confusing. And if I wasn't like Filipino, and I appreciated that the Tagalog words were italicized, but there wasn't a glossary or there wasn't a footnote at the bottom or a glossary behind the book saying what the word means, and it was the same for all of the books. I was kind of guessing what was happening because there were a lot of non-English words here and there.
But it was good that there's a backstory to every retelling.
Yeah.
What was your least favorite?
My least favorite, I forgot. I think it's Girls Who Twirl and something. It's about this Hinduism. They have a lot of gods and stuff, and there's this female god who defeated a undefeatable being. The story in 1,000 Beginnings and Endings was about these 3 high school girls who went to this dance, and then they wanted to seek revenge on this high school boy who embarrassed one of the girls, and it was just like, what? I don't see the the relation between the female badass god to the three high school girls. But I found that myth really interesting that I really wanted to look it up, but the retelling just killed it. What was your least
I
favorite?
don't know. I forgot most of them. Olivia's Table is the Ghost Festival.
That was good. That was good.
Yeah.
Dark Cross was good as well. It's about the mom, and then her daughter meets this guy who gives her who gave her a pendant, and then her mom was like, "Oh yeah, somebody gave me that pendant too." And the counting of vermilion beads is like about the two sisters, and one of them disappeared. I don't know. It didn't really stick to me.
The Smile. What was the Smile?
It kind of had like the Girls of Paper and Fire vibe, where there's this king who has a consort. She's kind of like a geisha, and then she entertains like the king's guests and stuff. And then she smiles at the prince, and then the guests notice how she smiled at the prince, and because they were having an affair, the prince and the girl, and that's why it's called the Smile. And then she was punished.
I think I kind of remembered.
Code of Honor is kind of like the Vampire Diaries.
Yes,
As when.
Yeah, Code of Honor is the Filipino retelling.
It's
Aswang.
good. I really like the Korean stories because they're cute. I like Land of the Morning Come. It was made futuristic, but then again, like, because she was just in front of a computer, it would have been better if I think it was virtual reality, because that way it would be like completely immersed in the game. Because if it was a PC, it would just be in front of you.
You could still be distracted.
Yeah, that's what I thought, but it was good. And another good one was the Mahabharata. There's two Mahabharatas where there was this guy who was in his car, and suddenly there was someone on the passenger seat, and we gotta fight. I think Cindy liked that story as well, where she said, "Oh, who are we fighting for? What is the end? What is the end result of this? Would we matter?" Deep stuff like that. That was good. Do you even remember anything?
No.
I gave it a 3 out of 5 stars.
Same.
Although I like how there's like different stories and different authors, you can break it up into small sections. I just didn't like some of it. I gave it a 3 out of 5 stars because some of them didn't do justice to the mythology, the origin, especially that Girls Who Twirl story ruined it 100%. Actually read the anthology before reading the story because I wanted to know what was happening, because when I read the story first and then the anthology last, things didn't make sense until the end. I wanted it to make sense from the very beginning. But that's just me. But I liked it. I just wish there was like a translator.
Yeah, or like a footnote of what this word is.
Weekend party.
In conclusion, we didn't complete the 5 challenges. I was missing the book with an intersectional Asian identity character or author.
Same.
What about you?
I didn't do the translated bit and that intersectional. I think I did pretty good for a mom.
And also, I didn't get to complete it because it was towards the end of my semester that time, and I wish I would have accomplished all the challenges. And I wish we would do it next year.
I wish there were more challenges that were as interesting as that.
Those challenges are good because it's easy. It's chill.
And hopefully we'll come across easy-ish, interesting readathon challenges in the future. So that concludes our Asian Readathon month. How did you go?
So I also made a reading journal video. I'll put the playlist here for you to check out if you haven't yet. We'll catch you guys in the next video. See you later.
Bye!
Bye.